Okay, hi everyone. Okay, I think we're gonna get started with our second panel. I wanna welcome everyone to Lead Like a Girl, talking about community impact. My name is Celine Bacily. I'm gonna be your guys' moderator. I currently work as a student staff worker for the Center for the Political Future, and I'm a sophomore here at USC, studying intelligence and cyber operations. I'm very happy to be here in front of all of you guys today and to be in the company with these amazing women. So, this is our Lead Like a Girl Community Impact Panel, where we are going to be discussing how you all can make a difference in your community, your country, and even the world. We'll be discussing how evolving landscape of female leadership, strategies for creating change in our community, and ways to find your own power in politics. So I'm now going to pass it over to our incredible panelists. If you guys could each introduce yourselves briefly to all of our wonderful women here.
Sure, I can start. Hi, my name is Melanie Mason. I am a senior politics reporter with Politico, California. So I'm based here in LA, born and raised in Los Angeles. Before I was at Politico, I was at the LA Times for about 12 years. So I've been a journalist basically all my adult life.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, my name is Martha Scutia, and I currently work here at USC as the Vice President for State Government Relations. And why am I in that job? Well, because for 14 years, I spent 14 years of my life as an elected official, both in the State Assembly and the State Senate. I am originally from East Los Angeles. I came to USC in the mid-1970s. I went to Georgetown Law School. I graduated in 1982. So I'm a lawyer by training, but really by vocation. I'm a community activist. Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Olivia Roberts, and I currently work at the Motion Picture Association as the Director of Federal Affairs. I am originally from Mississippi, and I graduated from Mississippi State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication, and then pursued my master's degree at George Washington University in Public Administration. Prior to joining the Motion Picture Association, I worked at the White House under Vice President Kamala Harris as her special assistant, and then at the Department of Justice and the House Energy and Commerce Committee. I was Miss District of Columbia 2022 and competed at Miss America in 2023. And I really love giving back to young women and empowering them, so I'm very excited to be here.
Hey y'all, it's a Saturday afternoon. Very happy to be here with y'all. My name is Yasmine-Imani McMorrin. I use she, her pronouns. I am a council member and former mayor in Culver City. It's about 20 minutes or so, give or take, with some traffic from here. I'm the first Black woman to serve our community. I'm the only woman and only person of color on our council. Very progressive in my politics. Very happy to be here with y'all on Women's History Month. We support abortion and say abortion because that is healthcare as well. And I'm really honored to be here with the panelists and our moderator, and look forward to the conversation today. Y'all keep up the amazing work. I loved lunch with the young ladies at this table. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for introductions. As you guys can see, we have 4 dynamic leaders here on stage with me who are driving change in the media, politics, and advocacy. So with that, I just wanted to extend the first question, specifically in regards to community. So if you guys could tell me a little bit about what community means to you, just in your time, in your work, or what you've experienced thus far, and why we should all care about our communities, especially in driving that change as a leader.
So I think of community both in terms of kind of my personal life and also in my professional life as sort of just the building community as the exercise of sort of getting outside of myself. I think that it's a great way. I think it's very easy for us all to be very self-involved, especially these days, or to be so focused on sort of how we're feeling, how we're presenting, how we're doing in the world. And touching base with community, I think, is a way to sort of take the temperature check of everybody else. And for me as a journalist, I think that that's essential, because when I'm trying to, report on what's going on in the world or get people the answers, the information that they want to know, it's way more important what the community thinks as opposed to what I think. And so I think that as a journalist, am trying to think about what stories are the most compelling, what information really needs to get out there, I'm constantly checking in with my own personal community and my professional community to really take that pulse and to get a sense of like, all right, I know as Melanie Mason what I'm interested in, but I think what's far more important and what is essential for me to do my job is to know what Martha needs to know, or Yasmine, or Olivia, or anybody else here in the audience. And so that, to me, is what community is. It's stepping outside of yourself and really touching base with everybody else.
Thank you. There was a great man by the name of Tip O'Neill, and he was the Speaker of the House of Congress, my Lord, in the 1980s. I was a young law student at that time at Georgetown, and he always used to say that all politics is local, which means that whatever happens as a really important issue in the political world, it starts somewhere locally. And he was totally, correct when it came to that. I grew up in East Los Angeles, and I remember in the 1960s, so I'm dating myself, how a group of community activists and their children, I was a little girl at that time hanging around with my mom, we wanted to turn East Los Angeles unincorporated into a city, the whole fight for cityhood. It never happened, despite many attempts, but it was very much a way in which the community said, we feel that we are better represented when we are a city and we have the ability to elect our own officials. That experience as a young girl of maybe 10 years of age really stuck with me. And then later on, when I was a teenager of 15, 16 years old, I was in Mexico City hanging around with my mom, who had divorced my dad, and she moved back to Mexico City. And my mom decided to run for Congress in Mexico. She was a member of the Mexican Communist Party. So this was in the 1960s, which means she had no chance of winning. But we still had to do a community-based, campaign. And those memories really stayed with me as to how, a community activist, whether you're 15 years old or 40 years old, or even at my age right now, I'm 68, you still have the ability to make an impact. So, and that's why I'm here. I really don't give up my Saturdays that easily. I have a granddaughter that I love to, every Saturday it's Mimi's Art House, and so we do art classes, her and I together. But for community activities involving young women, I am here, and I really do hope that you continue this effort in the future.
For me, community is finding connection. I think there's something important and special about finding others that you share value with. And those same people that you share the values with will help hold you accountable for the things that you are doing for yourself as your own personal community, as well as the community around you. I think it's really important you find belonging in that community. And while you'll have those who you share interests with, I think it's then incumbent upon you to use your experiences, your exposure, your knowledge to bring others along within your community. So for me, I was born and raised in a very small town in Mississippi, and there's a lot of opportunities that I necessarily did not know about, but my community gave me the strength to go after those opportunities. And now part of my job in my community is to take that same knowledge, experience back home and use that to help build the community that I came from. So that's the way that I view community, as a group of collective people who I share interests with, I share responsibility with, and that we can help each other grow together.
You keep wanting to pass me this mic. I know that's right. I appreciate you. The spirit of sharing is here at the panel. In terms of what community means to me, I'm a policymaker, and I didn't say this. I have a part-time, this is my part-time job as a council member and former mayor. I have a day job at Children's Defense Fund California. I'm the director of education equity. And given everything waves hands that's happening with the Department of Education and just all the instability that is impacting you, as many of you are in high school and some of you are in college, thinking about community, it's like those who are closest to the issue are closest to the solution. And I really fundamentally feel that at the local level, especially because wholehearted agreement that all politics are local, our voices deserve to be at the table, absolutely. And a part of the issue that we're seeing is that folks who are most impacted are frequently not given a voice to be at the table. One of my sheroes, Shirley Chisholm, she's the first Black woman to run for president, and she frequently said, if they don't have a seat for you, you bring your folding chair, right? Because it's critical when community is not centered and at the table, policy fails us. We have, housing crises and, minimum wage hasn't been raised in several years. And, we still don't have health care for everyone in this country. The only developed nation, in the world that does not have healthcare for everyone. And what does that say about us? Is community at the center? Is that reflected? Is the needs of your grandparents, of you, your future children centered in that? So it's like a little gut check, right? Where is community in this? Are we centering all of the members of our community? And how can we do a little bit more each day? Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing. It's clear that you guys come from a variety of different communities, and they all mean something different to you and something important. So given that you guys have made your way in your communities, and I'm sure these girls are looking for opportunities to do the same, I'm wondering what it looks like now to be a leader in your guys' communities, and if you guys could share what good qualities or good actions a leader can have or do. It'd be fun to work our way down.
You want to?
All right. Hey,
We can
y'all.
switch it up.
I'm back again. Okay. What is it like being a leader right now? It's raggedy. What can I say? I think this moment is reminding all of us of our intrinsic power, right? And I think sometimes we do look for, someone to come and save us. Like, oh, this person, Yasmine, is going to save us. Or, I don't know, Madison is going to save us, right? But it is reminding us, and yes, we do have leaders, we do have elected officials, we do have, community-based organization and nonprofit leaders, et cetera, that should, are rising to this occasion, and we're grateful, and I show up for my community, every day. And it's this moment is asking for all of us to get in the paint, right? My daughter frequently says it's time to lock in. Now is the time for all of us to figure out, we don't all have to do everything, but we all have to do something, right? We all have to care, whether it's the environment, whether it's education, whether it's housing, whether it's transit, whatever your issue is, we gotta get it. It's no more on the sidelines. Because there's, nobody's coming. There's nobody, I'm sorry, I should be more inspirational today, but it's asking all of us, what can we do? What can we contribute in this moment, right? So for me, what that looks like in my, town of 5.2 square miles, about 41,000 people, we have a severe jobs and homes imbalance. So I continue to work to ensure that we are welcoming more neighbors at all price points to Culver City, which is very Culver City is an uphill battle, but we continue to fight. I want to make sure that all of my neighbors, especially my undocumented neighbors, are treated well in our community. So we're funding Know Your Rights forums and making sure that, we're partnering with our school district to make sure that folks in our school district and our young folks and educators as well are being treated well. And last but not least, we want to make sure, it's a huge housing and homelessness crisis in LA County. Y'all know that. If you're here at USC, you might have, seen folks on the way in, or, we're still, locking arms and making sure we're fighting that fight. But we're making sure, I'm really proud, this is a recent win in Culver City, but we finally got a right to counsel for our tenants in Culver City, which is a huge thing. And make sure, just so y'all know, typically only 5% of tenants are represented in eviction hearings, whereas over 90% of landlords are represented. So what does that look like? It typically means that tenants are evicted. It doesn't mean, we're not casting aspersions about where folks are showing up, but we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to stay housed and that the power dynamic is a little bit more balanced, especially now in the wake of the fires. There's so much more pressures on our housing market here in LA County. So it's asking all of us to rise to this moment, to take care of one another, to support one another. So I'm turning that question to all these leaders in the room. What is the thing that you are going to do to support your neighbors, to support your families, to support your peers in this moment? Because it's going to take all of us. Thanks for the question.
I love that you said that it's going to take all of us, because I would say that it's important for us as leaders to share up consistently with integrity, even in those challenges, to share up, to show up and have that accountability for others. Like, we are in a very trying time right now, and so making sure that we are being consistent despite the challenges. We are here to serve, we are here to uplift others, we are here to better our communities, so we want to be doing that as your own leader in your high school. It doesn't take 15 years in public service to be a leader. Like, you are high school students, and there's a difference that you can make in your local community. You may be serving in a club that you say, I'm just a member, but you're more than a member, and it's your responsibility to make that space, create that space, and bring others into that space. And that's how you be a leader in your community and change the atmosphere around you.
This question is really making me think a lot, because you start off by saying that, we want to provide inspiration, but at the same time, at least my style has always been, I'm very, very realistic. And we are in some very, very tough times right now. In fact, in all of my years, and I'm for sure the oldest one around here, probably the oldest one in the whole room, I have never ever felt so scared in my life, to the point that I'm now considering walking around wherever I go with my passport in my purse. Now, we're trying to provide inspiration, but at the same time, we have to remember the reality that we are living in. And Shirley Chisholm, yes, was a great inspiration. Another woman that was inspiring was the former governor of Texas, Ann Richards, who said that if we were not seated at the table, we would be on the menu. Somebody was going to carve us up as a society, as women, as whatever. If we're not on the table, we're going to be carved up. The time is so frightening for me, and by way of background, after I graduated from Georgetown Law School, I worked at National Council La Raza for about 5 years during the Reagan years, and it was the one era in the U.S. in which we actually had immigration reform. That was the Simpson-Mazzoli bill of 1986. I literally devoted 5 years of my life to that bill. And it was the one time that a Republican governor, the only time that a Republican president signed an immigration reform bill giving amnesty to families. I had a talk with my sister-in-law, who is half black, half Mexican. Black because she's Dominican, Mexican because she was born in Mexico. She's never gone beyond the 5th grade. She has the green card, which means she's a permanent resident, but she travels back and forth between LA and Mexico a lot. So her family lives in Mexico City. Some of her family from the Dominican Republic decided to move to Mexico City, so she does that. I literally had to sit her down on Thursday, and I said, Rosita, we need to talk. And she said, what's going on? And I said, you can't be doing that back and forth, because I'm afraid that they're going to catch you at the border and they will not allow you back in. She goes, well, I have a green card. I said, ICE is basically arresting people who have green cards. I said, we need to take a more proactive position, and that is, let's start putting you on your way to prepare for the citizenship exam, assuming that the federal government and the state government is still giving resources to take the citizenship classes in Spanish and take the exams. And I told her very bluntly, if my grandparents could do it, so can you. And so it takes all of us to do our share. It doesn't have to be a big movement. It could just be even just one small thing that you do. And so in addition to all the work that I do, not only with USC, but also as a volunteer community activist, I've decided I am going to basically tutor my sister-in-law to become a U.S. citizen. You know, it's the only thing that's going to give me peace of mind. My sister-in-law thinks that I'm over-exaggerating, but I'm telling you, I've been down this road before, and even under Ronald Reagan, it wasn't as bad as it is right now. in terms of the issues impacting immigrants. So I hope that all of us, can form together a coalition and basically realize that when a permanent legal resident is stopped at the border, that's not only an assault on that person, it's also an assault on us, as well as our sense of what is the appropriate, and what it is that we have expected to believe in by the U.S. Constitution. I refuse to believe that the U.S. Constitution is no longer valid. And that's me, the lawyer. That's me, the lawyer, who will always fight for that. I refuse to believe that the judiciary is going to bend over and just say, let all this illegality go forth. So I think that you, as young women, you have a say. You can go to your local Congress member's office or your local state legislator's office and tell them, step up, say something. Don't just hold back and twiddle your thumbs.
I'll be honest, this is a hard question for me as a journalist because I think a lot of the ways that we discuss showing leadership here are things that I don't do as a journalist. I don't go to protests. I don't sign petitions. I don't give money to organizations that have political kind of bents, because my job is to be somebody that is seen as a fair arbiter of the facts when we're writing stories. And so it's a very different type of leadership than I think some of the other leadership that's discussed here. And so as I was listening to these really fantastic answers and thinking I both so wholeheartly agree and yet see myself kind of outside of that.
No, you're doing your job because you're being fair.
Well, and I think that, but that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. I think that leadership is sort of deciding on what your values are and what your role is in whatever sort of particular sort of, whether it's a political climate, social, economic climate, what have you, and then sticking with it. So as a journalist, the values that I find really important are fairness, transparency, accuracy, fearlessness in the face of power. And I think that what I try to do to model leadership, and when I follow the people who I think of as leaders, those are the values that they're doing. And so I think a lot back to what now feels like a million years ago in a very different vibe. But when I was in journalism school, it was when Barack Obama got elected president. And we were out that night. I went up to J school at Berkeley, and my fellow student reporters and we were out reporting on sort of the reaction, and in Berkeley and in Oakland, you'll be shocked to hear that people were ecstatic that Barack Obama had just been elected president. And the next day we were talking, and one of my classmates, who I have a lot of respect for and who is really, really did terrific work, but she said, I have to tell you, I was watching all these people celebrating, and I just wanted to go celebrate with them. I just wanted to jump in there and dance with them and cheer, because that's how I was feeling. And I understood that, but for me, the more meaningful moment was that day when I was at the polls and talking to people who were voting, and I ran into a woman who was casting a ballot for her mother, who was bedridden but had fled the segregated South, had come to Oakland, and was now casting a vote for the first Black man to be elected president. And it was this incredibly meaningful moment, and me as a white Jewish girl from Los Angeles would have never been able to understand, and still I don't think ever fully understood, but even the ability to stand adjacent to that and to be able to take that experience and put it into a story. For me, the moment for me was not about how I was feeling, it was how this woman was feeling, and the privilege that I had that I got to transmit that. So there's room in leadership for all of that. There's room in leadership for the people who throw themselves into the celebrations, who throw themselves into the protests when they're not happy. And then there's room for people like myself who want to document that, who want to preserve it for history, who want to inform people. And I think that as all of you are trying to figure out, what's my leadership path, I think that there's lots of different stripes to it. It's just kind of finding what your own internal compass is and then sticking with that.
Yeah, definitely. Like what you said at the end, it's kind of everyone finding their unique path. I mean, you all come from so many different paths and have had such different impact, and impact has been great in different ways. You all have different duties and responsibilities that you've taken on. So now I'm wondering, kind of with all that laid out, What can you guys recommend to them in terms of how they and their different communities can make tangible, positive impact, especially in times where they feel a little uncertain on where to go or where to start, especially at such a young age?
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, consistency, finding the things that, or analyzing, as you're being consistent, analyzing what can be done differently, but also using that to create that collaboration among others. I think it's really, really important that you understand and recognize the community you're around and you're representing, because you might be that voice or that the person that encourages the rest to follow the important steps that you're taking. So I would say that analyzing what you're doing, being consistent at what you're doing, and then using the community around you to continue to grow and make the changes that are necessary. You want to make sure you're making that sustainable change, because that's what's going to last, and not creating short-term solutions to the problems, but really thinking about what is sustainable, what will continue, what won't continue, and let's be realistic about the solutions that we need to make.
I don't know why I'm getting very emotional. It makes me think back as to when I was your age, and when I was around 18 years old, about to graduate from high school, I was named the valedictorian of my class. And so I had to write the speech, and I had to give it ahead of time to the nuns because they had to kind of approve it. And when I said that we needed to write the speech both in English as well as Spanish, the nuns literally told me point blank, "You will not say the speech in Spanish." And I'm like, well, Sister Mary, whatever her name was, I forgot her. She was mean. Gosh, she was so mean. I told her, I'm sorry, but 90% of the parents here either speak Tagalog, they're Filipino, or they speak Spanish. And so we need to account for that. And she goes, "You're not going to do that." And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she goes, "Oh, no, you're not, because you are no longer the valedictorian." So I was stripped of my valedictorian award. They gave it to the second highest GPA, the salutatorian. And then to top it off, I got suspended the last 2 weeks. I never told my family that I got suspended. I still put on my uniform, and I still make believe that I was going to high school. Instead, I would come to USC, because at that time I had already been accepted to USC, and I met all my professors. And they were saying, "What are you doing here in a Catholic schoolgirl uniform? Shouldn't you be in school?" I said, "No, I got suspended, so I'm going to hang out here at USC and find out what's going on." Make a long story short, the salutatorian got really, she got I guess, a pang of conscience. And she says, "I don't deserve this award. You're the valedictorian, and you basically sacrificed it for a principle. And that is to make sure that our parents heard the speech and understood it." She goes, "You should give the speech, Martha." And I said, "I can't, the program has already been printed out with your name as valedictorian. I'm a nobody, She goes, "No, well, when they call up her name, you stand up." And that's what we did. When they called up her name, I stood up, I delivered the speech both in English and Spanish. Obviously, the girls were like, "Oh my God," it was like a big scandal. But I learned early on at the age of 18 that you got to stand for something, and you got to be willing to sacrifice something. And I sacrificed my award, but I got the speech in Spanish so that my grandparents could hear it. But at the same time, when you're trying to do these actions of leadership, don't be by yourself. You need to, find your fellow students, your fellow colleagues that believe in the same thing that you do, and everybody starts forming a coalition. And then, if you can accomplish that, hold on to your principles and don't be by yourself, you are set for the world.
I think that sort of figuring out like where you can make a difference or where you can be a leader is both just is first about knowing yourself really well and sort of knowing what you bring to the table that is unique to anybody else that's sitting at the table with you, whether if it's that you speak a second or third language that maybe not as many people speak, if you have a certain skill. I think that as you are trying to figure out, like, where's my value add that I can come in and, like, put my own fingerprint on whatever we're trying to work for, a lot of it is knowing yourself and then sort of raising your hand to say, I'm really good at X. But I also think that if I had asked, high school Melanie, like, what is the thing you're really good at? I don't think I would have had an answer, and I think that that's okay. So in some ways, I almost think it's important to figure out what you're not so good at as well. I had a lot of jobs in high school and in college that I was bad at, like actively bad at. And they were actually just as useful as the ones that I was good at, because it helped me learn sort of where I was sort of adding value to whatever I was working on, and where I might be maybe detracting some value, maybe where that was the thing that I can delegate to somewhere else. I know about myself now that I am not a details person. I'm not the planner. I'm not the person. The time that I bought a plane ticket for somebody who was supposed to come speak at our university, and I bought it for him on the wrong date. That was an important lesson for me to know that, like, okay, that will be the thing that I assign my way more organized friend to do. So I think that learning how to be a best leader is learning about yourself, and I think giving yourself the patience to, like, really screw up sometimes, because those are going to be just as valuable to figure out, okay, we can eliminate that sort of option as I'm trying to be a leader, and then really honing in on what the things are that you think that you bring to the table that no one else can, and leaning into that.
And the question is about leadership and how to find leadership. And okay, I just want to make sure. Find the helpers, be a helper. I mean, there's a lot of need. I alluded to this. It's a lot of fires, physical and metaphorical fires that are happening. There's a lot of work to be done. I'm trying to figure out, I'm 36, I'm turning 37 this year. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. We never stop figuring out what a young woman at the table asked me, like, well, what's next for you? We never stop. Even I was talking to my mom who's retired, and I'm like, Mom, like, when does it all click? When do you have to, when is it easy? And she's like, girl, I'm still figuring it out. And she's in her 70s, right? So it's like, life is a process. When you stop looking at it as something that has to have a neat little bow on it, or everything like, oh, I'm going to feel like this when I graduate from college, or when I graduate from high school, or when I graduate from law school, or when I get married, or when I have kids, or when I get this title, or when I get elected. It never stops. And I don't want to say that to make you feel like weird about it, because yes, get those shiny pennies, girls. Go get elected, graduate, do all the cool things that I know that y'all are going to do. But at the same time, there is so much work that needs to be done. And if we focus more about that impact, and again, shiny pennies are wonderful. Like, it's wonderful to be the first to do whatever. And, like, it's great. Do those things, get those shiny pennies. And, right, the leadership piece, I think, is how well can you be of service? How well can you serve? How well can you serve under whoever? Your peer, somebody with a big title? It really doesn't matter. But what is the impact, the legacy that you are leaving beyond kids and titles and those things? But what is your contribution? And that could be, diverse, whether that's in your church or religious space, or whether that's in your community, whether that's in your day job. But there's a lot of need. I don't want to be super prescriptive. We all have innate gifts, right? My gift is not going to look like her gift or her gift or her gift. God gave me a specific set of gifts, right? And it's my job to live those out, for my gifts to let shine. So it is our job as young women and future leaders and current leaders, because there's leadership even, whatever role that you're sitting in, to make sure that your gifts shine through. So please try not to, and I know in the era of social media and all of that, it's very easy to compare, oh, she got accepted to this school, or she got this fellowship or this internship, and I'm going to do this to be just like her. You're never going to be just like the girl next to you. That should not be what our goals are. Our goal is how can we hone in more on our skill set, as my colleague was saying here, and live that out, and make sure that we are living that out to the best that we can do. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks.
Yes, 100%. Thank you all so much again. And I could not agree more. I think it takes a lot, sometimes sacrifice, sometimes learning what we're not so good at, and finding exactly where our space is and where our niche is so that we can make that really positive, tangible impact in our communities. But with that, you guys all mentioned that there has, there's been a lot going on, and we really want to be able to understand the best way that we can all make an impact collectively in this community. So I really want to hear from our audience, if that's okay, if we can open up to Q&A so they can ask their specific questions to you all to see how they can learn from you all as leaders. Okay, I think we're going to take questions now if people want to raise their hands, and then we have, yes, so many questions, exactly what we love to see. Okay, we can start over here, and then we want to get in hopefully as many questions as we can, so if we could do quick questions and quick responses so that we can hear from all these wonderful women.
Okay, hi, my name is Kelly. I go to Rodania Union High School, and I first of all wanted to thank you guys for coming here today. Hearing from you guys is so inspiring, and I'm really able to learn more about what you guys do and how I can help my community. Being interested in advocacy and how you can make an impact on the community must take a lot of passion in what you guys are doing. I wanted to know if there was a line between emotion and realism in community leadership, and if so, how would you guys separate or combine these two ideologies in your work?
Emotional realism?
Sorry, do you think you could repeat?
Sorry,
the
that was
last-
kind of confusing. I didn't know how to
If you could just
ask it.
repeat the last section of your question, thank you.
When you're trying to separate being emotional versus being logical, because advocacy takes a lot of passion, and obviously you have to be really understandable of what you're doing and how you're impacting others. How, if there is a line for you guys, how do you guys separate that or combine that in your work?
Between our emotions and what is happening, and how does that drive the work? I mean, we're all human. I think that's a myth that like women are super emotional. I don't know if y'all have ever been in a meeting with men and seen the emotions coming through at that table. Okay, so I think and I think particularly now when we're in a moment where people are pissed as hell. Excuse me, but like people are mad and for good reason, right? So how do we harness that? That's power. That's power, and it's not a vulnerability to, time, place, setting, all those things. You gotta be mindful about that. And how we come off as a Black woman and the first in my seat. I have to be mindful about my tone, about my hair, how I dress, all that stuff. But that's a part of it, right? But you still have to fight, right? You have to fight, and you learn how, and that's just strategy. So what I do also is I look at, and this was a part of my path, how I got to law school, I looked at people who are doing cool work in education policy, and I'm like, what's their backgrounds, right? So you look and find people like, who is somebody who I want to be like? And again, you're never going to be just like those people, but it's like little breadcrumbs, right? Oh, I want to look like this person. I want to speak like this person. I'm going to watch this speech or see, where they went to school or what fellowships they did, all those things. And I'm a huge proponent of programs. I did a ton of professional development programs, so spreading your network, all those things are really helpful because we network across, not just up. But anyway, to answer your specific question, utilize that emotion and respond to what's happening, because I think sometimes, particularly Democrats, and I'm a Democrat, we had a big tent, but I think sometimes we don't really acknowledge the pain points that working families are experiencing in this moment, and it's getting ready to get real. It's already real, it's getting ready to get worse. But acknowledging that and being, and a little bit of politics is theater, right? People want to see you getting mad as hell because they're mad as hell, right? But we have to strategically, so I don't know if there's a space, but it's more a strategy question. So what forum am I going to ensure that my constituents and my community can see, me fighting for them? How can I work with community-based organizations in Culver City? Do we need to do a rally? Do I need to release a press conference? Do I need to put up a motion to respond to the moment, right? So I don't see it as a separate, because I think women for a long time, it's like, oh, I don't want to cry, and I don't recommend crying in meetings. But but other than crying, which is also fine if it happens, because again, we're all humans having a human experience on this raggedy rock and this planet. But just be yourself. Everything is figure outable. There's, you can always recover from any mistake. But it's just a strategy of time and place and like how you're showing up. So as long as you have some intention and thoughtfulness behind that, your leadership will continue to, shine and show up.
Thank you. Great question, an amazing response. I think we're gonna go over here.
Thank you again for being here. My name is Clara. I also go to Redondo Union High School. And I actually had a question about self-assertion. So obviously, like as women in professional fields, especially fields that, require a lot of self-confidence in your leadership, how do you kind of what are the nuances to being very self-assured in regards to like when you want to discuss, sorry. So like what are the nuances that go along with wanting to be, or with asserting what you want to do? So like, for example, in being like a reporter, if you want to tackle difficult topics or subjects, or you want to talk about it in a more open way, like how do you go about asserting yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I wish I could tell you that there's like a formula, or if you do this work for like X number of years, then you'll like hit that level and you're good. It is a constant work in progress, and it's also not linear, right? So there will be times where I have an interview with an elected official where I feel like I really brought it, right? Not a gotcha, and not antagonistic, but just like standing my ground or things like that. And then I'll have one the next day where I'll be like, man, they just ran right over me. So I think that part of this is knowing that this is always going to be, as we talked about in other answers, like a work in progress. But I do think that figuring out, and I do a lot of almost like running the game tape for things afterwards, where if I did feel like I had a particularly successful interview or a particularly successful interaction where I felt like I asserted myself well, I go back and I'll listen to those interviews. What did I do? What was successful about that? What was about the tone? This is a pretty specific to a reporter thing, but there's nothing worse than having to listen to yourself recorded. I'm sure that everybody who's been in any of these panels before, the sound of your own voice is just like a nightmare. But if you can get over it and you can watch it and you actually understand, like, okay, what I did there was when somebody was being was trying to brush back that question, and I did not let them not answer the question. How did I do that in a way that felt assertive, but not, trying to think of a word that's not bitchy, but you know what I mean. All of those are going to be challenges, and actually going back and sort of like examining it after the fact is incredibly educational. So I would say that it's a practical sort of solution, but I think as you are in these moments, whether it is as a reporter or an advocate or an elected official, go back and study the game tape and see what worked and see what didn't. That's, athletes do it all the time, and we should think of what we do as kind of our own sort of muscles that we're building, and just keep working those muscles.
I'd like to say something about going back to what you said, which was how do you balance the emotion and how do you balance with, the self-promotion? There is a quote, I think it was by Oprah Winfrey, in which she described luck as that moment in time in which preparation meets opportunity. Preparation meets opportunity. Bingo, bingo. That's the moment in time that you should be ready for. If the opportunity is present, you better be damn prepared to go through that window of opportunity, because if you're not, then you're not going to get anywhere. So how do you balance that emotionalism with, the need to also, promote yourself? Listen, as young women, and when we grow into older women, there's still going to be a narrative that's going to be said about us. So we either accept the narrative or we don't. And the best way to accept the narrative is not by being emotional, because that's what they expect from us. The way to really challenge the narrative is by being prepared. So if you have, if you're advocating at your city council for greater resources for youth programs, do the research. What was the youth commission? What votes did they take? What votes has every city council member taken? Which were the good votes? Which were the bad votes? You need to hold people accountable, but that requires research. It requires preparation. Once you start preparing yourself, trust me, there will be no need for self-promotion. The attention will come on the natural to you because people will say, wow, she's a smart person. They're not going to say she's a smart girl. They're going to say she's a smart person. So to me, preparation is that moment in time, where the window of opportunity opens up and you go through it and you become very successful. But at the same time, don't forget your values. And even in times like this in which our values are being assaulted, we still have to hold on to our values. We have to believe in something. Otherwise, we have lost our humanity.
Yeah. Thank you both. Okay, we'll move on to our next question. And when you're asking the question, make sure to hold the mic super close so that our panelists can all hear you.
Okay, so my name is Melanie, and I go to Ramona Convent Secondary School. And at Ramona, they emphasize a lot about sisterhood.
Where do you go at Ramona?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
They emphasize sisterhood a lot. And so my question has something to do along those lines. So have you ever found solidarity among other women who have had different ideologies and beliefs, and how important is that network of support?
Absolutely. But I think that's an opportunity for you to learn and grow from them. Naturally, we find ourselves in networks and communities of people with similar interests, and that's also important. So you continue to stay grounded in your personal values and beliefs, but I think it's important that you're still surrounding yourself with others who do challenge you beyond your own personal thinking. So I think you use that as an opportunity to learn, to expand your perspective, and I think when you are deeper into your career, into your college career, you're going to be placed into rooms and positions with people who don't necessarily look like you, think like you, and it's going to be important to understand how to listen, to learn, and then use that with your responses. It's not always going to be the beauty of being in a space where everyone thinks exactly like you, and I think that's what's beautiful about life is you have those opportunities to grow and learn from others, and having friends with a wider perspective is also very important. My mom always told me growing up, and this is like maybe not so much about having different ideologies and thoughts all the time, but she said, if you're the only person in your friend group that knows anything new, then it's time to switch up your friend group. And not necessarily saying that, oh, my friends all have the exact same perspective, but it's just to show that your network has to be wider than just the way that you think and believe, because it's important to have that shared perspective. You will find something still in common with someone who has a completely different political ideology, where there's religious differences. Like, you will find something in common, and that's what's going to be beautiful about that particular relationship that you have with that person. So use those moments of building community with other people that aren't exactly like you in every way of thinking to learn and grow from them.
Thank you both. Are there any other questions?
If I can just add to that one too, sorry, before we go to you. In politics, there's a thing that people say, there are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends, just permanent interests. I don't particularly, but it just means to be very strategic. You know, just because, and everyone doesn't have to be your friend. Like, I respect everybody. I respect everybody until somebody come at me crazy. Then it's like, okay, hold on. But you can work with whoever to get what you need to get done, right? Even if somebody is, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So just, take that with a grain of salt. But yes, continue to widen your network, continue to work with others, but just stay focused on whatever it is that you need. And my daughter's in the back, but I often tell her, like, there are no, there's a lot of people taking shortcuts. A lot of people, especially young people, like y'all, and this is not a dig on y'all, because I'm young too. I'm still fairly young. But there's not a lot of people doing the extra mile. There's not a lot of people who are, it's a lot of people who's just doing just enough. So if you can differentiate yourself by even trying to go outside of your normal circle, right? Even trying to build a bridge or build a coalition with someone who hasn't, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. How do you feel about partnering with me, right? And then people see you and your leadership there as well. So I just say just continue to be open for the opportunities that can just naturally come as we are all, again, fighting for all of us in this season. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's super crucial. I think we have time for one last question.
Hi, I'm Roshini. I go to Northwood High School, and in this current political climate, I feel like there's a lot of different bad things going on at the exact same time, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming to think of all the different things that I need to somehow change. And I just want to ask, is it more crucial for community impact to focus on one specific thing or to work on multiple different things that are happening in our environment?
Let me try that. I think you should focus on what you're good at, but at the same time, you need to kind of stretch to find other like-minded individuals who perhaps might be good at something else. And little by little, that's how you start, creating your coalition so that you're not by yourself. Please do not be by yourself. You cannot do this all by yourself, You need to reach out to other like-minded individuals, number one. Number two, you need to be prepared, because not only because you're a young woman, but also because you are young. You will be subject to a higher burden of proof. So you need to really, really be super prepared. And you know what? You're all very smart. So I know, and now with the flick of the computer and artificial intelligence, the world is at your fingertips. Number three, this is something where even I am struggling, and that is, how do we collaborate cross-generation? I have, sons who are, early 30s, who basically think I'm an idiot, and I'm like, because of course in their mind, they still think that, oh, you don't know anything. It's just this generational thing, that I don't know what it is. And I'm even beginning to feel it on the workplace, and I'm trying to find professional development assistance to help me out in terms of how do I deal with the transference of knowledge. The knowledge that I have, after 50 years on the job market, how do I transfer that to the next generation as lessons learned, Well, it would be very helpful if the young generation would be willing and have an open mind to accepting some transference of knowledge from others who have been through the war path, because let me tell you, it's been a war path. It's not just with Trump. I mean, I've been dealing with this since I was a teenager with the nuns, who did not want to, allow me to read the valedictorian speech in Spanish. So I'm just saying that, be prepared, find like-minded people, and know that you can't do anything by yourself, but at the same time, hold true to your values.
I will just add to identify your skill set and what you're good at, and use that to help drive what type of impact you're wanting to have, whether it's on one project or multiple projects. My parents are community organizers. I don't think I will ever be a community organizer. I will go to a protest, I'll be part of a protest, but me organizing it, I will not plan to do. I don't think that's my strong suit. However, because I've worked in political spaces, I understand the political landscape and how to create a strategy around how do we implement changes, or how do we push legislators to make that change. So while my parents are in Mississippi and I'm in DC, they're calling me to ask me, like, who should we target? How should we target them? And then they are more of the activators who are organizing the rest of the community. They're creating the campaigns, and I am helping them figure out how to identify who they should go to. So identifying your skill set, I think, will help you figure out what type of projects, and if it's one or many, if you're good at multitasking, you can do all of them. But for me, I'm a one project girl. But for you, it may be that your strength is that you can compartmentalize multiple projects and help to have impact across multiple at one time.
I have one more thing. I'm chatty, y'all. So one last thing. A part of this strategy of Flood the Zone is to make us feel disempowered, is to make us feel like we're helpless and there's no point for us to do anything because we're overwhelmed, right? So it's upon us to not let them win. Like this, I deserve better than this, you deserve better than this, my baby deserves better than this. If she should have children, her grandchildren, her children deserve better than this. So we don't have to have the whole, although it's wonderful and we love a plan and we love charts and all of that. We love a map. We love a map to see where we're going. But sometimes the question is, what is the next best thing I can do in this moment? Like, we don't have to have everything figured out. We don't have to fix or undo all the executive orders tomorrow, because that's not within our power. So what's within my power to do? And maybe that's just going to, a meeting here on campus. Maybe that's joining a club or whatever. Like, I don't want to ascribe what the next best step is. And again, identify the helpers, because there's always people helping. There's always people feeding neighbors. There's always people doing mutual aid. There's always people helping. So figure out what the next best step is for you and do that, and the path will open up. Like, if you just follow that need, again, not everything. It's too much going on right now. So, pick something and then continue on that path. It'll make you feel better, like you're doing something. And y'all, please, and I know it's hard, but stop doom scrolling. It's too much news coming out. It's just try to, check in periodically. Set some time where you're going to check in and then stop, because it's bad for our mental health. We are not designed to know all this much about one another. So have your time where you're going to check in, and then, So thank you for the question. Thanks for letting me add on, y'all.
Yes, thank you all so much. I think that concludes the time we have today for our panel, but I want to extend a huge thank you to all of our panelists here who provided all of us with such incredible insights and knowledge that I'm sure we as students can bring forward with us into our lives every day as we continue to find our paths in these spaces. I also want to extend a thank you to the Center for Political Future, of course, for bringing us all together and providing these panelists the space to share with all of us. So thank you each so much for sharing, and thank you all for your incredible questions and for being here today.